Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're living a little bit dangerously. In today's video, we're taking a look at one of the spicier move updates from the Season 27 balance patch, and that is Force Palm being given to Shadow Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr previously had Counter, which worked pretty well on it until Counter was absolutely gutted, and since then, Conkeldurr has been a shell of its former self. However, with Conkeldurr now getting a very strong fast-moving Force Palm, the question remains, is it now a viable spice pick for the Open Great League? So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at Neo Doombot bringing Shadow Conkeldurr to the Great League. Picking up a great lead in game number 1, leading Mantine into Zweilous. This Zweilous is not pivoting out as well, so this is very, very good news for Mantine. Mantine has a dominant matchup here. Twister will hit for devastating super effective damage, and if the opponent ever pivots out of the matchup, well, then they're just going to get Force Palmed down by the Shadow Conkeldurr. Zweilous double shields, they're going to be firing off a charge attack on alignment. Instant no shield comes out from the Mantine as Zweilous connects with the hard-hitting Dark Pulse. Mantine racing to the Twister, unable to get there, but honestly, this just sets up Shadow Conkeldurr to farm all the way down. Conkeldurr hits the field, look at the damage! Opponent forced to pivot out, they save switch at a Clodsire, just to be immediately shut down by the Seismitoad. Seismitoad can take an Earthquake very comfortably here, and the opponent goes for a Stone Edge bait. They were trying to catch back up by going for the bait, but Seismitoad never has a reason to shield there. Earth Power connects, Clodsire survives, and now Seismitoad is going to shield this one and go for the one shield farm down. Clodsire doubles down with the bait. Seismitoad not quite going to get the farm down before Zweilous pivots out and fires off its energy. Zweilous launches Dark Pulse, Seismitoad lets itself get KO'd because this is the Shadow Conkeldurr show. Conkeldurr gets the Force Palm down. Conkeldurr has so much stored energy as well. In the back, the opponent has a Jellicent, and this game is over. Conkeldurr is running its legacy move, which is Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing is easily going to pick up the 2-hit KO onto the Jellicent. Poor Jellicent never even got to fire off a single charge attack. It gets KO'd. In comes the Clodsire. Clodsire gets Force Palm down, and that's going to be a Game 1 win. Hopping into game number 2, leading Mantine into Galarian Stunfisk. This matchup, I imagine, is going to be a little bit awkward for the Mantine, so there's an immediate pivot out, and in comes Seismitoad. Opponent answers with Fearow, but this is not a convincing answer to Seismitoad when Seismitoad is up energy. That's because these two Pokemon have identical pacing, so Seismitoad is always going to outpace with the energy advantage. Fearow fires off Drill Peck, Seismitoad able to tank it, fire off another Icy Wind. And Seismitoad, by debuffing the Fearow this much, is going to set up some awesome farm for the Mantine. Seismitoad is going to make another Icy Wind, forcing energy out of the Fearow, but this is honestly perfect, because now Mantine could go for a massive wing attack farm down and exit with a ton of energy. Opponent denies the farm down, they send in Galarian Stunfisk, and look at these Force Palms! Oh my goodness, Shadow Conkeldurr puts up the shield, opponent will go for the Rock Slide bait, and that's going to force a Brutal Swing out of Shadow Conkeldurr. Brutal Swing lands onto Galarian Stunfisk, Stunfisk survives, but this is only a Rock Slide. Rock Slide is resisted, Shadow Conkeldurr can't take much, but it can survive that. If the opponent brings in the Fearow, they're definitely just fainting to one Force Palm. They're going to be bringing in Pidgeot, and this Dynamic Punch is going to absolutely delete this Pidgeot. Dynamic Punch is going to be shielded, and it's all up to Mantine. If Pidgeot is running Feather Dance, this could be catastrophic, but they farmed past it, so it appears they do not have it. Mantine lands the Water Pulse, that gets Pidgeot pretty low. Pidgeot has a ton of energy, and the game comes down to this, a 50-50. Mantine no shields, calling the Heat Wave bait from the Pidgeot. Pidgeot running Heat Wave and Brave Bird. In comes Fearow, and Fearow has the Drill Peck loaded. Mantine puts up the shield, trusting that Pidgeot does not have the Brave Bird loaded. To be honest, I don't know my Gust Pidgeot counts. It appears they do not have it, and this game will be a win. Water Pulse KOs the Pidgeot, and those Shadow Conkeldurr Force Palms earlier in the game were just absolutely criminal amounts of damage. We move to game number 3, picking up a very strong lead, Mantine into Dragonair. Dragonair is another Pokemon that did get buffed this season. Its Charge Attack Wrap now does extra damage in addition to what it already did, which is guaranteed debuff of the opponent's defense. However, even with this extra damage on Wrap, it still feels like Dragonair lags behind the top meta dragons of Altaria and Kingdra. I'm not quite sure if the opponent ended up lagging there or what happened. It looked like they didn't get fast moves for a little bit, but may have caught back up. But either way, they're just getting knocked out by the back-to-back Twisters. Mantine is able to win the lead matchup very convincingly, but does exit this matchup in -1 defense. Opponent's going to send in Togekiss looking for the full farm down, but unable to get there. Mantine makes the Water Pulse, and this is very valuable damage. Opponent's going to be no shielding, but trying to get rid of this last little bit of Togekiss HP is going to be very difficult because all remaining fast moves in the back are double resisted. Seismitoad shields up the Aura Sphere, but Togekiss already at Aura Sphere number 2. making a bad scenario that much worse. Seismitoad is able to tank one Aura Sphere, but the fact that Seismitoad shielded will glue the opponent into the fact that Togekiss has a lot of value in the back, and they're going to match shields. Seismitoad never going to survive, even with the debuff applied to the Togekiss. They're going to put up the shield, click Icy Wind, and hope that the opponent finally lets the Togekiss go. Icy Wind does get shielded, and that is quite unfortunate. Seismitoad getting outpaced, but what a catch! Able to save the Seismitoad and catch onto Mantine. Mantine takes the Aura Sphere, will get knocked out. Can Shadow Conkeldurr ever Force Palm down here? No, it's going to be the Seismitoad brought in. Seismitoad launches the Icy Wind, opponent switches out and catches onto Stunfisk. Is it the Galarian Stunfisk? Yes, it is. And this is the perfect opportunity for Shadow Conkeldurr. Well, it will be if Shadow Conkeldurr can survive a -1 Earthquake. Can Conkeldurr hang on here? Earthquake connects. Conkeldurr gets rocked. Conkeldurr gets the farm down. Exits with the Dynamic Punch loaded. This is double resisted damage, but Togekiss never stood a chance. Down goes Togekiss, and that's a good game. We move to the next match. Mantine going to be leading into Shadow Alolan Ninetales, and this is not a great spot to be in as the Mantine. Mantine is just going to get neutrally outpaced. Alolan Ninetales being able to spam out Weather Balls every 10 turns and 8 turns alternating means that in the War of Attrition, Mantine can just never afford to keep up. However, getting shield advantage could potentially set up the backline quite nicely, or in this case, land the Water Pulse and then maybe go for a Force Palm down. Alolan Ninetales lands the Weather Ball, Mantine survives, makes it to the Twister. This is double resisted. The opponent should know this is only a Twister, but they put up the shield. A massive error from the opponent. In comes Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr more than happy to give the shield back, because Conkeldurr won't be at a shield deficit because the opponent ended up shielding a double resisted move. In comes Jellicent. Conkeldurr farms up, plays to the CMP tie. This Brutal Swing will not take the knockout, but it will put a serious dent into the Jellicent. Conkeldurr is kind of forced to shield here. Unfortunately, Conkeldurr can never hope to outpace. The Jellicent will always make a second surf before Conkeldurr can make 3 Brutal Swings, but Conkeldurr is just going to try its best to get this Jellicent as low as possible. Although, to be honest, the double resisted Force Palms are actually adding up on the Jellicent. Jellicent takes the knockout with Surf, but unless it's a Pokemon that gets one-shotted by either Icy Wind or Earth Power, Seismitoad is just never winning in the back. Jellicent fires off Shadow Ball, Seismitoad gets rocked, in the back is Quagsire, and unfortunately this game will end in defeat. Because Earth Power does do a lot of damage, but this is a Quagsire. Quagsire tanks that effortlessly, the CMP tied to the Aqua Tail, and that's going to be game over as Aqua Tail KOs the Seismitoad. So close and yet so far, that game will end in defeat. We move to the next match, battling a trainer named Glowing Whiskers and picking up a disastrous lead, Mantine into Unova Stunfisk. Instant Seismitoad save switch, opponent sends out a Fearow, but this is not a good answer to a Seismitoad save switch. Seismitoad will always be able to dictate this matchup, winning either switch advantage or shield advantage. Honestly, forcing shield advantage could be pretty nice, and then if Mantine is able to get a big wing attack down, then Water Pulse would do a lot of damage onto the Unova Stunfisk and set up Conkeldurr with the shield advantage to sweep in the endgame. Seismitoad able to grab both shields away from the Fearow. I assume at this point Seismitoad will probably end up no shielding and just letting it go. That's exactly the plan. No shield comes through, Drill Peck from the Fearow, but no! Seismitoad accidentally overfarms too much and lets Fearow force the final shield. If Seismitoad Icy Winded instantly there, the Fearow never would have been able to farm down, they would have had to throw energy, and it would have set up the Mantine perfectly. Mantine pivots out, opponent does not send in the Stunfisk, and instead they send in Licky Licky. All looked like it was headed for catastrophe, but the opponent does not bring the Stunfisk into the Mantine. They send out Licky Licky, and suddenly there is hope. Water Pulse lands onto Licky Licky. Licky Licky will be able to knock out the Mantine here if they fire off the Body Slam, but they don't throw it. So instead, Mantine gets to a second Water Pulse, putting that Licky Licky into perfect farm down range for Conkeldurr. Actually, I don't know if Body Slam will be enough here. I think the Shadow Ball might be required. They full set the Shadow Ball, and now it's time. Send in Shadow Conkeldurr. Force Palm erases Licky Licky from the field of play. In comes Unova Stunfisk. And the hope is that Conkeldurr can survive a Mud Bomb here. I imagine it should be able to hold on, but probably not by much. Conkeldurr going for a Dynamic Punch. This is going to hurt. Now can Stunfisk hang on? Dynamic Punch connects. Stunfisk hangs on. Oh, the catch! Able to save Conkeldurr, send in the Seismitoad as Stunfisk goes for discharge. In comes Conkeldurr, Fearow falls to the Force Palm, Stunfisk falls to the Force Palm, and that's going to be a win. We move to the next match, leading Mantine into Guzzlord. Now, this should be an incredibly good matchup for the Mantine. As with basically every Dragon lead, they just get absolutely torn to smithereens by Twister. Guzzlord strikes first with a Brutal Swing, but Mantine is so bulky that really does not do much. Opponent tries for a Twister catch on a Wigglytuff, but realistically in a 3 vs 2 scenario, you're never getting a catch unless you end up turn waiting. So not only do they not get the catch, but now Mantine gets to fire off back-to-back Water Pulses. I can't believe I'm seeing Wigglytuff in Season 27. Opponent able to leave with a parting gift of a Swift. But for a Pokemon with the bulk of Mantine, that is an easy survive. Mantine able to get the farm down. Opponent has a Jellicent in the back. The Jellicent will be a little bit difficult to deal with, but if the opponent ever switch locks that Guzzlord, then they're just getting fully farmed by the Shadow Conkeldurr, and then Conkeldurr is just going to be spamming Brutal Swings and absolutely destroying the Jellicent. Jellicent fires off Shadow Ball, shield comes up from the Seismitoad. Seismitoad looking to full send the Earth Power, hoping the opponent tries to call the Icy Wind. They do not. They do put up the shield. Will they ever switch? No, they're just going to stay in. Seismitoad cannot afford to give up the final shield here. Seismitoad no shield. Shadow Ball lands, makes the Earth Power, and it all comes down to this. Conkeldurr is going to have to sweep. Earth Power is going to connect. Seismitoad going to stay in, try and make the Icy Wind, able to get there as Jellicent fails to farm down. That's going to cost them a shield or their Jellicent. They put up the shield, in comes Conkeldurr, they pivot into the Guzzlord, and it's all over. These Force Palms are lethal. Conkeldurr can just farm down, win charge attack priority. There's nothing Jellicent can do. Jellicent has all the energy it could ever ask for, and it's not going to be enough. Honestly, I was expecting a Bad Manners Dynamic Punch there, but just gonna take the safe route, fire off the super effective Brutal Swing, and take the win. Oh, tough opponent in the next match, going up against Firestar, the Orlando Regional Champion. It starts with a very neutral lead, Mantine into Lapras. I would have to give the slight edge to Lapras just because Lapras does actually get same type attack bonus on Ice Beam, whereas Mantine does not get stab on Twister. However, Mantine is still able to output some very fast damage onto the Lapras. Both Twisters end up getting no-shielded, and just like that, Lapras is rapidly approaching the red HP. But Firestar looks to strike back, he lands the Ice Beam, that's big damage. Even a Sparkling Aria would be enough to take the knockout, so my intuition was correct. Lapras emerges victorious, but this could set a big farm for Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr snipes down with 2 Force Palms, exits up a ton of energy, but that is basically the worst case scenario Pokemon to see in the back as Mantine hits the field. For a team running Mantine, this team has absolutely no answer to Mantine. Neo's gonna overfarm because if he threw the Icy Wind instantly, Firestar could have absorbed the damage and then looked to pivot. Instead, he fires off the Water Pulse, gets the shield, and Neo is now finally going to start applying some Icy Wind debuffs. Icy Wind no shielded by the Mantine, there's the pivot out, it's Hisuian Electrode in the back. That is an incredibly cool pick. Hisuian Electrode will be taking super effective damage from the Icy Wind, but Electrode actually has a real grass move now. Due to the Energy Ball rework, it's only 10 turns to the Energy Ball, and that is not what Seismitoad was hoping to see. Seismitoad invests the final shield, fires off the Icy Wind, goes for the undercharge, but Firestar's just going to be saving all Protect shields in the match for Mantine. He knows at this point, Mantine is basically unbeatable. Twister lands, Seismitoad racing to the Icy Wind, able to get there, but Firestar still has both Protect shields intact. Firestar puts up the shield. He could even try for a farm down here. He realizes he's not going to get it, and he's going to fire off the Twister. Twister will take the knockout. In comes Shadow Conkeldurr. Can Shadow Conkeldurr survive a move from Mantine? Mantine has been debuffed. Come on, Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr's never surviving. Water Pulse takes the knockout, and Firestar wins the game. We move to the next match. Ninetales leading into Mantine. This is an incredibly good matchup for the Mantine. Ninetales throws an Ember, save switches into Seaking, but Seaking down energy is going to have a pretty bad matchup into the Mantine. Mantine able to force a shield with Twister, and now in comes Shadow Conkeldurr. Shadow Conkeldurr's Force Palms are adding up, but the peck damage is absolutely unrelenting. Seaking debuffs with the Icy Wind. Conkeldurr goes for the Brutal Swing bait. If Seaking calls this, I'm pretty sure Seaking can't hang on here. That is very unfortunate. Seaking is able to survive, and that's going to pressure the final shield away from Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr is going to be greeted with the Ninetales. Unfortunately, Conkeldurr can't farm up much. Ninetales already very, very close to a Weather Ball, but even a debuff Brutal Swing will still add up quite a bit. Conkeldurr will get knocked out, still able to get through a lot of HP on the Ninetales, and the opponent has to hope that whatever they have in the back is able to win up a shield. In the back, they have Kingdra, and they are just absolutely core broken to smithereens by Mantine. Mantine can afford to just stay in here, absorb the Swifts, make the back-to-back Twisters, and then just get a small energy advantage on the Seismitoad. First Twister is going to be shielded. Kingdra, even if it can land another Swift, it's just simply not going to be enough. They try and CMP time, Mantine not going to fall for it, and instead gets an entire free wing attack. The Water Pulse has been banked, the switch has been made, Seismitoad hits the field. Kingdra's going to be full sending Surf. This will do a lot of damage, and now Seismitoad has to watch for the switch. There it is. In comes the Ninetales, but they're unable to make the energy ball. Seismitoad's Earth Power will take the knockout. Seismitoad can even threaten a knockout with Icy Wind here, and that's going to force Kingdra's hand. Kingdra has to throw the Swift, and in doing so, they now don't have the charge attack to win charge attack priority over the Mantine. Back in comes the Mantine. Twister's Thorn from earlier. Twister KOs the Kingdra, and the final battle of this team ends in a win. All in all, these were some very entertaining battles, so many thanks to Neo for that battle submission. I think it's really cool that the developers are not only trying to improve mons that could potentially be meta, but are also looking to try and improve spice picks. Like, no one's coming into this thinking that Shadow Conkeldurr is going to be the new top meta threat to topple the Open Great League, but the fact that it went from completely irredeemable trash to now a Pokemon that, if you support it well, could actually get a few wins in the Great League, I think is really cool. I've long enjoyed trying to find outside-of-the-box Pokemon that maybe people aren't valuing highly enough and making them work and getting wins with it in the Go Battle League. So I really like to see that there's clearly someone on the dev team who feels similarly. Even if a Pokemon isn't going to be top meta, doesn't mean it's not worth buffing. So seeing updates like Force Palm being given to Conkeldurr, Shadow Ball being given to Xatu, they're never going to be the most meta Pokemon ever in open leagues, but I think it's really cool that they're still taking steps to try and modernize these Pokemon a bit more with all the power creep we've had across all the leagues and make them more playable. If there's a best chance for Conkeldurr to actually have true meta viability, that would be in the Master Premier Cup. I believe we do actually get the Master Premier Cup later this season, unless I misread the schedule and somehow hallucinated it when it does not exist. But Master Premier would definitely be Conkeldurr's best bet. It definitely has the tools to succeed. I imagine in that meta, it would probably opt for Stone Edge over Dynamic Punch, because Force Palm is already a pretty good source of fighting damage. So you would have Force Palm to be able to hit for big damage on mons like Snorlax, you would have Brutal Swing for the ghosts like Metagross, and you'd have Stone Edge in case you get stuck on a flyer like Gyarados. So I think Conkeldurr's best bet for meta relevancy would probably be in that Master League Premier format. Obviously, there's a fair share of fairies in that format that it wouldn't really have a lot of play into, but I think it could go from a Pokemon that basically sees no play post-counter nerf to a Pokemon that at the very least could be worth consideration in that format. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel. Leave a like on the video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't already, and an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated, so thank you guys so very much, and until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.